Okay, hello. So I am entering right now in a phase of my story in writing the plot, writing the story that I call the vortex. And you may have a different name for this, and there might be probably one that's very established in l- the literary world, but this is what I call it, the vortex, and I'm going to explain to you why. And it's my favorite part of a book. As far as writing. And I will say both reading and writing, I think the most exciting parts are always starting because it's a brand new thing. You're on a new adventure, whether you're starting to write a book or starting to read one. And then the last, like the third act, as they say, the last, it's usually like the first 100 pages and the last 100 pages. And the trick is to make it very interesting in between. So, anyway, that's my cold open. I don't know how well that was. And this is kind of a thrown together topic. It is my goal to go live at least. I'm going to try to go once a week. It's been about 2 weeks, probably more than that. This is my last one. I have another topic that I'm putting together, but I want to do a little bit more research. And the, the title of that one, which is coming soon, is going to be why are why aren't writing coaches successful authors? I think that's a great question, and I'm not necessarily going to beat up on writing coaches, but I can tell you as as an author, uh, and I think this happens whether you're independent or commercial. You are just bombarded with come-ons for writing coaches that are going to help you with your marketing or your editing or aspects in writing. And you look them up, and well, first of all, like why okay, I'm getting too far into it because this is going to be another topic, but we're going to do that pretty soon. Why aren't writing coaches successful writers themselves? Um, so, real quick, a little house cleaning, just so you know. I like it's been about 2 weeks since I've done a video, and I'm going to try to stay on schedule as much as possible. I just I'm not asking for sympathy. I just want to explain myself. If I'm not speaking very well, I'm slurring my speech. It's difficult for me to talk. I have something, probably a tumor, growing in my throat. I'm seeing a doctor next week about it. They're going to do a biopsy, so we're going to cut in there and see what it is, and hopefully it's something that they're able to take out. But it's making it more and more difficult for me to speak, and more difficult for me to eat. But I don't want that to get in the way. I just want to explain why I sound the way I do, and why I look the way I do. So, uh, if you know me personally, you will know that I have somewhat of an absurdist humor, and so does my girlfriend a little bit. But anyway, this is my cat. Uh, so Laura's mother has gone from um, independent living to assisted living to memory care. And I told Laura, hey, when your mom goes to memory care, if she can't take the cat, I'll take her cat. So I have Lacey. I think Lacey's about 14 or 15 years old. She's an old cat, big, fat old cat. She's super shy, but very sweet. She likes a lot of attention, but you have to be in the right position. Like she'll run away from me if I'm walking around, but if I sit down on the floor or lay in the bed, she'll come and let me pet her. So anyway, Laura, who kind of shares a little bit of my my glee with the absurd, got me this T-shirt for Christmas, and this is. I think I actually took this picture of Lacey, and so this is this is my cat, Lacey. This is what she looks like. So anyway, okay, enough of that. So thank you, Lloyd. Lloyd says, uh, how do I get that up there? Love that shirt. Thank you, Lloyd. You can't have it. Sorry. Um, but yeah, I love it. It's really funny. Laura and I went out to dinner to a nice restaurant. Laura bought because I'm a starving artist and a loser of a boyfriend. And I said I'm gonna wear it when we go to the restaurant. And I'm gonna say, um, to the waiter, I'm saying, um, "This is my cat. We couldn't bring him, so I wore the T-shirt." But she almost said, she's, "You know what? You know, do it." And, well, I did. I chickened out. But anyway, I'm gonna wear it here live. And so this is kind of an ill thought out topic, but one I wanted to talk about nonetheless. It's what I call the vortex. Now, there may be, and if you have another name for this, let me know, because I'm sure there's some kind of name that they teach in the creative writing courses in universities. I think I took one actually. I did. I took a graduate level creative writing course at Wayne State University in Detroit years and years and years ago. My teacher, who I uh, argued a lot with in class, um, he uh, he accused me. He goes, "You see, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Engdahl here is a postmodernist," and he was right. I was a very like all young people think they know better than everybody else and everything's stupid. And I wanted to say to him, "Yeah, and you're a romantic." But guess what? I got old and I grew out of my obnoxious postmodernist nihilism, and now I'm a diehard romantic, just like that. I'd like to find him and say, "You know what? I now get it," and I realized what a little prick I was back in those days. But anyway, okay, the vortex. So this really works when you're writing a novel that has multiple. I would say, let's see, uh, multiple lead characters, and I think you can do this. You can have multiple lead characters and usually one main character. So by lead characters, I mean any character who gets the perspective. Now I write in third person, and I probably will always write in third person. I have written a few things in first person. I have a short story somewhere around that I wrote a long time ago in the 90s that someday I might contribute to an anthology. And I also have another side project that I've been kind of working on, and that's in first person, but I don't know if that will ever see the light of day. Enough of that. But most of, and I have nothing, it's not, well, I totally respect people who write first person, and some of my favorite books have been written in first person. But I tend to like to write in third person, and I like to read in third person because I feel like first person traps you. Here we go. Oh yeah, this is Brian Riley. Writing coaches don't provide spark, diligence, and great premises, only structure, marketing, and corrective measures. It's the difference between a screenwriter and a script doctor. I agree. And like I said, this is a topic that I was going to do yesterday, actually, and I ran out of time, and I made a really funny graphic to go for it because I get so many come-ons, and I'm sure that both of you guys do too. Just it's especially on LinkedIn, and it drives me nuts because it's such a waste of my time. I don't mind if someone says, "Hey, Mr. Angel, I was wondering if you're looking for help with marketing or blah blah blah." But the game they play, they make you walk through of, "Hi, I'm a writer. I noticed you're a writer too." Yes, and I already know it's coming. Uh, can you give me a link to your book so I can look what you've written? And it's like, well, wouldn't you already know? I mean, all I have to do is just look me up. I'm on Amazon. I don't have to send you a link. And then eventually it turns into like, what is your biggest challenge as an author? And I just at that point, I'm like, yeah, my biggest challenge is swatting away the flies that are constantly trying to get into my wallet uh, to charge for their services of whatever it is that they're going to do. Now, I will say, before I go down that road too much, that there are, and none of these people are successful authors. If they were, they wouldn't be spamming you on social media trying to get you to pay for their services. However, there are writing coaches out there, whether they're marketing coaches or actual writing coaches or editors, whatever, who have not done well as writers themselves, but actually do a really good job of coaching. And there's some that I don't pay anybody, but there's some that I follow some of their free content, and I think they're legit. But I think sometimes it's a different skill set. I think first of all, writing and marketing are two different skill sets. They both fall with there's some overlap, and I feel like I'm pretty good at both of them, and I'm lucky. But I think that there are some people that kind of start off as writers and then realize that that's really hard, and so they take one of these side routes and they become um, coaches, or they become marketing gurus. But enough of that. Okay, the vortex. So, like I was saying, I write in third person, and I have usually a main character. Of every book has a main character, but they might have multiple lead characters. And what I mean, the difference being is the main character is just as it says, main character. Lead character means something slightly different, and in that their perspective, that sometimes you're going to be writing from their perspective, and you can jump perspective, and all these things are this is kind of my philosophy for life. My I think the greatest story that anybody's ever told or learned as a child is the Goldilocks story, because you really don't want your porridge too hot, you don't want it cold, you want it just right. And yes, I understand the whole middle ground fallacy, where I say the world's flat, you say it's round, and so we agree that it's oval instead, which is not, which is neither nor the other. That being said, there's still a middle ground between extremes that I think you can find a place for yourself. And uh, I got way off track here. And so I have lost my. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that um, I have multiple lead characters who take control, that I'm writing from their perspective. Oh, I know what I was trying to say. Some people say be careful of having too many perspectives, and it's called head jumping, where you're jumping around from especially in the same scene, where you're in uh, the main character's head, and then you're in the the protagonist's head. I'm sorry, the antagonist, the bad guy's head, and then you're in the love interest's head, and you're jumping around all in the same scene. That can be a little bit much, but I think if you have having multiple lead characters and being able to move into someone else's perspective, um, it can it can allow you time jumps. So like if you're kind of tracking along with character one or your main character, you can come to kind of like a cliffhanging moment, and then go and get into the head of the antagonist, or get into the head of another character. And I think there is a danger of having too many lead characters. And I don't think there's a magic number. I mean, there's guidelines. This is art, so you have to think it through sometimes. It's just what feels right to you. So anyway, in every one of my books, there are typically at least two or more lead characters, in which there's the main character, but then we'll jump into other people's heads and we'll follow them for a while. And I think also you can create tension and build up pace, as you go from one to the other. So in the beginning, when you're writing your book, you want to stay on a little longer with writing in one of your characters' perspective. Like sometimes, spend a chapter or two or more. I think in Rampage on the River, it starts from Carl's perspective, and we're in Carl's perspective for the first three chapters, and then we go to Elisha and we meet Elisha, and then we start telling his story, and then we go to Kyle, and and we start telling his story, and eventually, and we're moving around from, not rapidly, but we'll be with one of them for a chapter or two, and then we'll go to one of the other ones, And eventually we get to the third act where, and this is what I call the vortex. And you might have a different word for it, and I would like to know what that is. But this is the third act. So if you follow the three act structure, which I do loosely, um, first act is basically setting up the story and the characters and the setting. So, this is where we are. Here's what's happening. Here are the characters. This is what they're doing. And then you have the inciting incident. The inciting incident is usually the thing that kind of puts the plot into motion. So you've built up enough background, enough interest in the characters, everything like that, seeing how their world is, and now everything's going to get turned upside down. The second act is usually kind of a developmental act in which now you have the characters going through whatever this problem is and developing, maybe failing at at solving it, having defeats, however you want to do it. And like I said, I think it's good to have an idea of story structure, but don't be a slave to it, because too many times I think, well, especially a lot of genre writers like me, uh, the books start becoming too formulaic. One of my favorite writers, and I won't say that person's name, but I've read many of their books, and I consider this as someone to model myself after. But those books in that person's series eventually kind of jumped the shark, where after like the fourth novel, it feels like you're just reading the same novel over and over. Just plug in different battle, plug in different antagonists, and all the beats are all in the same place. And I think you put out a lot of content, and maybe there's a lot of readers who enjoy a very like predictable story. So I keep structure in mind, but I'm not a slave to it. And I try not to allow, even this, I'm a little afraid to like put this into words, because I realize this is something, the vortex is something I like to do. And so what I mean by the vortex is that if your first act is setting up the story and the characters and the location all the way up to the inciting incident, and then the second act is the development, in which now the character is dealing with whatever the problem is, and there's successes and defeats. The third act is always like um, building up to the big finale, and the big, the final confrontation, the big showdown thing. And what I like to do when I do multiple perspectives in my books is, once we get into that third act, those characters are jumping into a vortex. And what is a vortex? It's like a whirlpool, right? And if you think about, okay, think about a toilet flushing. That's the best way of doing it. When the water comes, it comes in from all the sides, and it's spinning, and as the whirlpool is turning, and as it gets closer to the bottom, to the center, the the turns get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter until there's a singularity at the bottom, like a black hole, like a black hole. So you have the outer bands are turning slowly, but as you're getting into the vortex, the turns are tighter and faster, because you're traveling less distance until finally, and all the parts are turning in the vortex, and until finally they're all arriving into the same place, into one point of singularity, where now all these stories that you have been telling, all these individual perspectives, all the characters are now coming together for this final showdown, in which you're going to satisfy all the different storylines that have been coming together into the vortex. And so the reason why do you have another word for that? I would like to know what it is. It's just something, and maybe I'd heard it somewhere before and forgot that someone else had said it, and then thought it was my bright idea. Other people do it, obviously. It's in a lot of writing, a lot of storytelling, but it's something that I noticed. I am in that point right now I'm writing chapter 5 of the French Fiasco. It's in 5 parts. If I were to break it up into 3 acts, and I probably could break it up, but it's in 5 parts, in which each part is like a novelette, which is anywhere between like 20 to 25,000. I'm sorry, 12 to 25,000 words. 12,000, that is, so 25,000 words. And that's a whole other topic that we're going to talk about in one of these lives, where I'm going to talk about scenes, which is the same length, the length of a scene, the length of a chapter, a novelette or a part. I feel like these different units of fiction can be standalones, or they can be part of a larger thing, like a novel or even a series. So in part 5 is basically the vortex for my book, in which there are multiple characters, and we've seen them. They've appeared in the book. We've been in their perspectives, but when we're in their perspectives, we're spending more time with them. But as we get into part 5, the vortex starts turning, and so all the characters are beginning to converge into one place. And as I get closer to the finale, we're moving, so that now I'm writing chapters where we're going within the chapter, we're moving from one perspective to the other, until they finally all reach the same place, and we have the big end. I'm trying to think of a good example of my writing that I don't want to give anything away because you haven't read any of my books. But I feel like the vortex, there's a little bit of it in every one of them, but like in the Perils of Perryville, there's several storylines where you've been following Carl, you've been following Kyle, you've been following Catherine, and you've been following Nathan Woods, and even, was it Michael Davies? All these different perspectives are tightening as we get into the Battle of Perryville, and so until all of them are in the same place, and the big thing happens. Same thing with Blood for Blood at Nashville. The big finale is the Battle of Nashville. Most of My Love is a little bit more singular. I feel like the parts are like part 1. I forgot what part 1's called. It might just be called Act 1. I went from calling parts of my books parts to acts, and then back to parts. And the reason why I did that is that I feel like the 3-act structure is something I'm thinking when I'm writing, because I think everything is in 3. Everything is in 3. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's no getting around that. So I think of my stories in 3s, even though I might break it up into 5. A Mask of My Love, the first part, and also when I do these parts, each part could be a novelette, meaning each part has its own kind of story. It has its own beginning, middle, and end with a climax. So every one of my parts has a kind of a big climax, and then climax. Sorry, I cannot pronounce. And then a denouement that rolls into the next part. And this one is in part 5, in 5 parts. And I'll tell you, the first part, there's chapter 1, which is called The Death of an Empire. And then after you read chapter 1, it says part 1. And then part 1 is The Affair. And then chapter 2 is Behind Enemy Lines, and then the next several chapters until you get to the next part, which I think is called Atrocities, which is the onset of the war, the Franco-Prussian War. And then part 3 is called Metz, and it's based off of a city in France, where the story goes for a while, and then part 4 is the Battle of Saddam. And this one's a little interesting because uh, a lot of my books, I think all of them, the marquee battle is really the big finale of the book. Like once you get through the marquee battle, and there's several battles in all my books, but there's always a marquee battle that's not always, but often in the title itself. And the battle is the big finale, right? So, like um, on Rampage on the River, it's the Battle of Island Number 10. And so, once the Battle of Island Number 10 is done, there's just a little bit of denouement of kind of wrapping up the story of my characters. And I need to plug in my computer. Um, Same thing with the Perils of Perryville. The Battle of Perryville is the big end, and then there's a little bit of an extended denouement, but everything after the Battle of Perryville is kind of like a denouement, which you just kind of find out what happens after. Blood for Blood with Nashville, same thing, Battle of Nashville, and then there's a kind of an extended epilogue where, because Blood for Blood at Nashville kind of wraps up the Civil War trilogy. So it was a resting point. So that was a big book, and I wanted a big ending and to wrap things up before I went on to write Mexico My Love, which is a prequel and about the Mexican-American War. Once again, Mexico My Love, the Battle of Mexico City, you could break it up because there's the Battle of Chapultepec Castle, which is part of the Battle of Mexico City, because the Americans have to take Chapultepec Castle first, and then continue, which is guarding one of the approaches to the city, and then takes the city. It all happens on the same day. So that battle is the big battle in that book. The Battle of Königgrätz is the marquee battle in the Prussian Prince, and that one, I definitely didn't want to put the title of Königgrätz because nobody would know what that is. So it's called the Prussian Prince, and then a Austro-Prussian War novel. Battle of Königgrätz is like the big deciding battle of that war. This one's interesting because the Battle of Saddam is basically the big battle of the Franco-Prussian War. The Franco-Prussian War did continue afterwards, but it's kind of like Gettysburg, in which Gettysburg didn't end the war, but it's kind of like the big, like we're on our way to. I mean, it really isn't though. It's more like a midway point. But what I'm saying is, the Battle of Saddam kind of decided the war. Like the war was pretty much decided, even though it would go on for several more months. And I won't give too much away of what happens after that. But Battle of Sedan is not the big finale in my book. It's the finale for part 4. But there's still a whole other part. And it's the longest part I've written. And I think part 1 in the book is 12,000 words. And then the other parts have been around 20. The part 5 is going to be hopefully under 25,000. It's already over 20,000 words. I wanted to keep it under 20, but at the same time, I don't want to stop myself from telling the story because of something arbitrary like word count. So it's part 5 is turning to be a bigger story than what I was. Well, it's as big of a story as I thought it was going to be, but it's taken longer to write it. But everything in it is important, and I'm really enjoying it. But it moves if you're like you get through the big battle of Battle of Sudan, and we spent a lot of time, like several chapters, describing the Battle of Sudan. So when you read the book, you're gonna have a good feel for what that battle was like and what it was like to fight in it, and how it went down. Like you'd be able, if you read my books, like if you read this book, you should be able to tell somebody with confidence about how the Battle of Sedan happened and how it and how all the pieces well worked and the outcome of it. But the story goes on afterwards. And so what do you do when your big battle is not the big climax of the book, and this is the vortex. And it's interesting because the battle is huge. Way bigger than Gettysburg. I don't know if it's bigger than Konigrad's. I think it is. I think the Battle of Sedan was bigger than Konigrad's. It's one of the biggest battles fought in Europe until we get to World War One. So the climax in part 5 has to be exciting, but it's at a different scale. It's more of a street level scale, but the stakes for the characters themselves are big, and there's some really big reveals that happen in it, and not just for the book, but for the whole series. And so I wanted to get it right because this book here, the French Fiasco, which is book 6 of the series, is going to be a resting. It's not the end of the series. It's a resting place for Carl and his story. And it's going to be a capstone to everything that happened beforehand, including it's going to close loops that I started all the way at the beginning of Rampage on the River, book 1, and all the way through the 5 books preceding it. There's going to be a lot of payoff for everything at the end of this book, book 6. Then Carl and his story are going to take a rest, and I'm going to write the novella, which is called the Underground Railroad Ball. Carl is going to be in it, but he is not going to be the main character. He is going to make an appearance in it, but it's not continuing the story from after the Franco-Prussian War. It's a prequel to Rampage on the River. So it's a book. It'll cover just a few days before Rampage on the River starts, and it's going to have Chester E. Newman in it. It's going to kind of explain his story, and there's going to be an adventure. If you can kind of guess from the title, it's going to have something to do with the Underground Railroad, meaning runaway slaves in Detroit, in which Chester E. Newman is a sheriff's deputy and has to deal with the intrigue and some moral dilemmas and things like that, all while Carl and Kyle and all those characters that you know are going to the ball and saying goodbye to each other because the war is beginning, and some of the kids that are from the South are dropping out of college, going back to fight for their state. So that one, once again, I wanted part 5 of the French Fiasco to be under 20,000 words. I've already gone past that. It's fine. The novella or novelette, and we'll get into on another live stream about what's the difference between a novelette and a novella. But the Underground Railroad Ball is going to be a novelette or a novella, and it's going to be free and exclusive to my email list. So what I would like you to do, if you want a copy of it, get on my in the details below. There's a link to sign up for my email list. The email list is just for me to let people know when I got something new coming out, when something is on sale, or if I'm going to make a public appearance. I try not to abuse it. I know people's time is precious, so I don't send a bunch of stuff that you don't need to know about. I don't send spam. But the idea behind the free and exclusive novella or novelette to the email list is a marketing ploy in which you try to get people to join your email list. And one of the ways you do is you give them something in return. You join my list, you're going to get a free story that you can't get anywhere else. And why do you want people on your list? Because, it costs money to advertise, even organic advertising on social media. By organic, we mean like posting things but not paying for them to be ads. Facebook, Twitter will throttle you down and won't show what you're posting to everybody who follows you unless you pay them money, right? So So you really don't own that. If you want to really make a splash on Facebook, you gotta pay for it, and it's expensive. I'll tell you right now. I just finished up 2024, probably my second best year in sales and revenue. But a lot of that money was spent on ads, Amazon ads, yeah, but Facebook ads, quite a bit of money I spent. Now I got some return on investment on there. I sold a lot of books because I ran those ads, but man, they're expensive. But if you have an email list of people who want to be on that list, people who have volunteered and say, "Hey, I like your work. I like your writing. I like your books. I would like to know when new stuff is coming out." There's a little bit you have to spend on the domain name and a little bit on one of the services. There's like three things that have to come together to start the list. It's really complicated. But other than that, you own that list. So you can't be canceled or fired from it, right? Like I can be kicked off of Twitter because I say the wrong thing or on Facebook or wherever. Um, I could even get in trouble with Amazon if I misstep in something, but no one can take away my list from me, right? And if I want people to know about a a book or a sale, I can spend money on Facebook and I will get it. I can force it out there so that people, and it does work. And I run ads in the UK and I run ads in the United States. And when I run them, up go the sales because people are seeing it and they like it and they click on it and they buy the book. But it costs me nothing to send people an email and say, "Hey, I got a new book coming out," and that's what's going to happen. Um, I will probably finish the French Fiasco in the next week. I mean, I am in the vortex. I mean, things are spinning around pretty quickly now. We're getting to the big finale. I can see it. I mean, I'm at the point now where like, you know, I I uh I outline or plot kind of loosely. I do plot. I do kind of have an outline of what I want to have happen, but I also allow it to grow as I do and become more in focus. So now I'm at the point where everything that happens in the book from here on out, I basically have listed. And I just have to go down the list. I might add some things to it, but I'm pretty much know what's happening here from this point to the end of the book, and I can even kind of predict how many words it's going to take for me to finish that and when I'll be done. So I'll probably be done. No promises, but I think I'll be done writing the story next week. And when I'm done and building the book as well. So I usually write the chapters in separate parts and then build the master document that will be used to create the ebook. Um, with all the parts in the table of contents, the forward, the preface, well, I don't have forwards or prefaces, but is it a forward where I'm talking to the reader and explain some things? There's a historical note. There's the just acknowledgments, sources, all that kind of stuff. Once everything is done and we're beginning to do the editing, then I will probably start the pre-orders for the French Fiasco, and I'm gonna set it for 90 days. And the reason being, I think when I first started, I set it for like a week or 2 weeks. For the first one I did pre-orders was Blood for Blood, and then I did it longer for the Mask of My Love, and even longer for the Prussian Prince. But I found out that you have to it has to be over a certain amount. I think 60 days in order for okay. So just so you know, so on Amazon, you have an author's. If you're an author, you have an author's page on Amazon. Even if you're not doing anything with it, they will automatically. Alexander Dumas, who's been dead for 150 years or so, has an author's page. Now he's not updating, at least not as far as we know. But and whether the author is actually operating it or not, you can follow that author. And if you follow an author and you agree to the emails, Amazon is supposed to email you when that author has a pre-order, coming soon, or when a book is out. Now, my last book, I have right now. I have 176 followers on Amazon. I don't know who they are. I don't know how to. There's no way I can reach out to them. I just have to hope that Amazon does right by me. And so, the last book, The Prussian Prince, they didn't put out a an email to people saying I had a pre-order, and I was looking through all the the gobbledygook you got to read through, and found out that I think you have to have like a minimum of 60 days or something in order for them to put out that email. And then so I missed that, and so all that to say, I'm going to put out the pre-order 90 days to make sure I absolutely get that, because I have 176 people who said I don't even know who they are. Probably most of them are strangers that I would like them to get an email from Amazon saying Cody Angel's got a book out. The other thing that happened with the Prussian Prince is that they didn't put out an email saying I had a new book out either. And I get that. Lloyd, I don't know if you're still watching, but I get them all the time when Lloyd puts out a book, but yet no one got one from me. I think the reason why is because the Prussian Prince has a lot of German military iconography that was also part of German military iconography during World War II. And I think that anything that shows that looks like it's promoting the bad guys from World War II gets throttled back. All right, and so thankfully the French fiasco doesn't have anything like that. I mean, I literally have a Prussian eagle on the cover, and I think an Iron Cross is in there too. Here's Brian Riley. The reason why your formula works is because the characters can show their motivations before the third act vortex. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And so by the time you get to the vortex, you understand who they are. You understand why they're doing what they're doing. So now that work is done. Now the pieces are on the table, and as they're tightening and tightening and tightening up the action. Um, so anyway, I will be probably done with the French fiasco next week. No promises, but I think I will be. We'll start the 90-day pre-order. I'm always trying to beat my record. So I'll just tell you, if you listen this long, I'm just going to tell you the truth. When I did a pre-order for Mexico, I'm always embarrassed to tell you. So when I did a pre-order for um, Blood for Blood at Nashville. Now this is the first time I've ever done a pre-order, and I only did it for 2 weeks. I got, I think, two pre-orders. When I did it for Mexico, My Love, I think I ran it for longer, and I got 12. So I went from 2 to 12. And then when I did it for the Prussian Prince, like I said, Amazon did not email the people that were following me on Amazon. So I did all the work myself. As far as advertising, I got 46. I got 46 pre-orders for that. And I ran Facebook ads. One of the things I'm going to do, and by the way, once again, since you're here's some little insight on this on marketing and pricing. So right now, the Prussian Prince is $4.99, and what I'm going to do is when I start the pre-order, I am going to drop the Prussian Prince from $4.99 to $3.99. So it's going to go down $1 in price because it's no longer the newest book. And then once I drop the price down to $3.99, I have to wait 30 days before I can do any kind of special. So I'm just going to drop the $3.99. It'll be $3.99 for a month, and then we're going to run a week in the U.S. at 99 cents, and then a week in the UK at 99 pence. And to try to get more and more people. And I'm going to run, probably at a loss, I'm going to run Facebook ads in both countries to try to get more and more people to read the Prussian Prince as we get closer and closer to the French fiasco. uh, as far as the pre-order is concerned, so the French Fiasco when it comes out is going to be $4.99. It's going to be about 110,000 words. I wanted to be 80,000. It's going to be 110. That will now take the $4.99 slot. So the French Fiasco will be $4.99, and the Prussian Prince will go down to $3.99. But it'll go on special every 90 days, basically, like the other books. But the French Fiasco, I'm going to sell the pre-order for 99 cents, 99 pence, and I'm going to run ads for that, and to hopefully get. And I'm going to let people know that it will go up to $4.99. So there's no reason why anybody should pre-order it unless, you know what I'm saying. If there's no justification, if the pre-order is the same price as what it's going to be when it comes out, what's the point? Just wait till it comes out, right? And you can only do pre-orders for the electric book anyway. So what's the point? You're going to get it immediately. So you can spend $4.99 now and wait for it, or spend $4.99 when it comes out. I would like to get, the reason why I want a lot of pre-orders is because the clock is ticking with the algorithm. So the more pre-orders I get, the higher rank I get, so that I want it to hit the ground running with all those pre-orders will count towards its ranking. So I want it to rank high in the algorithm, so it gets shown to create an avalanche of sales. So I'm going to do pre-orders. So if you're listening and you're interested in it, and you got $1 to spare, 99 cents for the digital version of it. And if you don't read Kindle books, hey, just because you read Kindle books doesn't mean you're not allowed to read print books. I'm about done reading Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility. I'm reading on Kindle, and then I'm going to finish Falkenhorst, which is another Franco-Prussian novel. I have that on hardcover. So you're not giving up reading real books. It's just you can get cheap books. And I have a Kindle, but I have to admit, I'm going to show you what it looks like. I have I now read almost exclusively Kindle on my phone, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is Sense and Sensibility. It's loading. The reason why I do it is because I can read in the dark, and I've learned that with my Kindle I have to turn on a light to do so. Now it's taking forever to load because I'm trying to show somebody. So now, here we go. That's what it looks like. So like when Laura, we don't spend every night together, but when we do, I sleep a lot less than she does. So while she's sleeping next to me in the darkness, I can read and burn away chapters. And so I burn through books. Well, I don't burn them, but I can read a lot more books because digitally. I still read print, but it's easier because I don't have to go to the library. I don't have to order them, wait for them to show up. I can just download, read, move on to the next book. So anyway, all that to say is don't let that get in your way. And the app is free. So if you want to read the French Fiasco and you want to get it for $1 when it comes out, do the pre-order because it'll go up to $4.99 when it comes out. Do the pre-order, and you can have it for $1 when the day it comes out. I'm going to try to actually get it out before the 90 days is up, but which I'm pretty sure I can do. But I'm going to do 90 days so that the email goes out. So hopefully, if you're watching this, let me know if you get it and you're following me on Amazon. I know Lloyd does. Let me know if you get an email that it comes out. So then once it comes out, that goes up to $4.99, and then it'll stay $4.99 until the next book comes out, which will be quite a while, because my schedule or how I do this is that once I finish the book, it takes me about two months to do, me and my editing team, to do all the editing and get it all polished up and ready to go, and then out the door it goes. And then I spent about a month just fixing all the problems with the last launch and doing the marketing. and then also doing a little pre, some um, research and some outlining, and then I start writing the next book a month after the last book came out. That book that I start writing is actually going to be the novella for my uh, for my email list. Now, I just am about to finish writing a 110,000 word book. I would like my novella or novelette, depends on how you're measuring it, to be 20 to 40,000 words. Certainly nothing more than 50. I mean, I'd really like to keep under 40,000 words. It's supposed to be a short novella. So that's what's going to be taking up my time afterwards. And it's a big gamble and commitment because it's basically a book that I'm not going to make any direct money off of. It's not going to be something that I'm going to be able to sell. It's something I'm going to give away, hoping that giving that away will build that email list, and that email list will help me sell more and more books as I write more and more books. And I got a lot planned if this thing doesn't kill me. I'm hoping that, of course, I'm the only one putting these limits on me, but my goal is if I put out the French, or if I'm finished with French Fiasco at the end of next week, start 3 months of pre-orders, get that finished. So that would be like what? It'd be April 15th. No pressure, right? Then take about a month, like I said, before I start writing the next book, and then taking a month from starting to distributing the novella to my email list, taking about 6 months to do. So if I come out on the 4th, in April with this book, that means it's May when I start, which is the 5th month of the year, and I take 6 months. That means that comes out in November, and then I start, maybe take a month and then start Black James, which is going to be the next book, next actual novel that's going to be for sale. Black James is going to be a very interesting book. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to frame it. It belongs with the other books. It is, if you've been reading the series, Black James is the father of Elijah and Liza. He makes his first actual. He's mentioned a lot in the Civil War trilogy. He makes his first appearance in the flesh in Mexico, My Love. He's a pirate. Black James is going to be it's going to be a big departure because it's the first book that is off the main sequence of the other books, but it's connected to them. It's going to take place before all the other ones, I believe. And it's also going to be, all my books so far have been plot driven. They've been, very strong plots. This is a character book. So it's about his life. And I believe it's going to start, well, I know it's going to start. It's going to start in Africa in the late 1700s. With either his father or his grandfather. And so there's going to be a little bit of like a family saga of how we go from someone in an African tribe that goes into slavery, that escapes, ends up fighting for the British in the War of 1812, to running a shipping company, a shipping dock in Jamaica after the war. This is where James is born, and he grows up as a little boy reading pirate novels and working on his dad's dock and wanting to become a pirate. And guess what? He becomes a pirate. And I believe, I'm not quite sure, but I believe that the book will probably end right around where you meet him in Mexico, My Love, although that's not in stone. So is that going to be book 7 of the series? or is it going to be an unnumbered adjacent to this in the series, but not a numbered main sequence number? That one, I think I'm going to go with the latter because I don't want people to be. You won't have to read it to continue the series. I guess is. And by the way, if it does gangbusters, if it does really well, I could probably write more Black James novels and have a spin-off series. That I'm not looking to do that, but you never know. If it does really well, and I don't want to necessarily do another James novel, but something similar to it, I do have a story that I want to do that is Haitian Revolution, which happened right around the same time, shortly after the French Revolution. And I think that's a fascinating story. I've listened to multiple podcasts that have gone over that history, and I really want to write in that world. And so I have an idea. If I don't do it, then it's in my list of books that I'm going to write. The James book, I'm going to give myself as much time as I need. I think that to me, I think that the shortest time between releases should be. Oh, that's Laura. All right, I'm gonna let you go. I love you guys, and just remember, if there's an author out there that you like, and it doesn't have to be me, but it could be Lloyd, it could be Brian Riley. I don't know if Brian's got his book out, but I know he's gonna do one. But if there's an author that you like and you want to support that person and help them, when you read their books, give them 5-star reviews or as many stars as you're willing to give them. And if you can do that on Amazon, that's awesome. If you can also do that in Goodreads, even more awesome. If you can be bothered to write a few lines to say, you don't have to, you've seen me do reviews, they're quite extensive. If you just write, Laura, you can come in, don't worry about it. My girlfriend's here. Unless she just dropped something off. Or maybe that's a possum that got into the front door. But if you can write a few lines, it doesn't have to be something extensive because you've seen me do book reviews here. Just say, hey, it was a great book, couldn't down, man. That is gold. That really helps us a lot. I got a good review just recently, and we did a live about it. And there's so many good lines, and it happens to be a person who's a writer. So there's so many really great lines in there that are going to be in my Facebook ads when we run those soon. So anyway, I love you guys. Keep writing, keep reading, and hopefully I'll be back soon. I'm going to do the my live stream about why aren't writing coaches successful authors. I think it's be fun. I promise I'm not going to hurt anybody's feelings with it though. Okay, all right. I'll talk to you guys later, and thanks for watching.